Hey guys, welcome back to another strategy call, scale or die strategy call rather. Today we're going to be getting into a very timely topic, uh, telehealth compliance as a performance multiplier, which we've been having some of our own challenges on our end, so it'll be good to share what we've been experiencing as well as get some feedback from you guys. As always, I'm joined by my esteemed co-host, Michael Cole, CMO of Everflow. Good to chat with you today again, Michael.
Hello, everyone, and good to chat with you as well.
If we haven't met before, I'm Will Perry. We're a telehealth affiliate, founder of Reason. We've been running campaigns with telehealth brands since 2022. And how this call works basically is think of this like a live strategy call. We want to help you. So if you want to talk campaigns, offers, attribution tracking, etc., creative strategy, ads, the whole thing, feel free to pop that in the chat as we go on. We always kick this off with sort of one or two icebreaker type sort of questions to kind of get the flow of things. Michael's going to tee that up here a little bit. And then, so yeah, we're always happy to take questions from you guys live as well. So definitely pop that into the chat. And yeah, looking forward to jamming with you guys on this one. So Michael, where do you think we start today?
Yeah, so we'll be talking a lot about compliance. Obviously, it's in the title, etc. And let's start with sort of like you've been posting a bunch on social media about sort of Meta and the sort of like challenges you've been facing there and sort of like where they're heading. So starting with like what's up with Meta would be a great starting place.
I wish I knew what was up with Meta, if I'm being honest, right? Some of you guys may be feeling the same way. It's pretty clear. And anytime that stuff like this comes up, I always, whether I'm chatting with peers or I'm trying to get information as well, I always try to frame this as these are nuggets that I've picked up talking with other industry colleagues or things like that. Always verify, but it's also really hard. Like you never can get a straight answer from Meta, right? And that's kind of always part of the issue. I'm seeing a variety of different challenges that are happening right now. Widespread sort of Facebook profile bans. If you've had a profile banned in the last couple of weeks, pop it in the chat. Ad accounts going down, business pages going down, Instagram profiles going down. Super weird on that one. I'm seeing a lot of copyright violation, like pop-ups. I literally logged into Meta this morning, getting ready to check some campaigns and whatnot with the team. And I was put through a new security protocol sort of login user experience. And then I was prompted with a copyright infringement from a client that had a video that was taken down by Meta from 2024. So it's pretty clear right now that Meta is making some pretty widespread updates to two-factor authentication. What do they call it? Where it's like basically like location-based like login. Someone correct me on that. I can't remember exactly like what it's called, but like who logs in and where, where you're logging in from. And that's causing a lot of people to lose access to their profiles. For us, we've had, in the last couple of weeks, we've had 5 business pages get restricted, probably 2 or 3 ad accounts, and two staff members' Facebook profiles have also been restricted. And that's frustrating. And I'll share just what we found as the primary culprit. If you guys are linking LLMs to your ad accounts, like Victor, for example, we jumped on the Victor train. Wish I never would have done it. We weren't even having Victor manage campaigns for us.
One second. What is Victor?
Victor is an AI agent, out of the box AI agent, basically like marketing tool. I'm not here to talk bad about Victor at all. I think that the tool is amazing. For whatever reason, Meta's really cracking down on third-party AI and automation tools and softwares. They've recently launched the Facebook MCP, where you can tap into that sort of on your own. But it's pretty obvious that they're not liking any sort of third-party tools and whatnot. And I would say we've started hearing rumblings of this for the past couple of months. But it can cause some pretty massive issues. So And I shared this in one of the mastermind groups that I'm in this morning. Like, if I were you guys, I would not connect any third-party AI or automation tools to Meta right now. It seems that the sensitivity for compliance is even higher right now than it historically has been. So maybe I'll just pause right there. That's some of the, even just in the last couple weeks, that we're not even getting into ad copy, offers, marketing stuff, like, right now, like even just like your tech compliance is causing some challenges.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's just a reminder of just there's so much consequences when these like reliable channels get disrupted, and Meta is trying so many different things at once that like, I mean, there was like the controversy that came out maybe like a few months ago about like a bunch of like high profile like business pages and profiles getting hacked. And it was as simple as just like mimicking the IP address of a location of a famous person and then asking the AI chat in Facebook to like reset their password and send them the details. And it's just like a reminder, is like so much of stuff is changing so quickly, and companies like Meta that always have a habit of moving as fast as possible, like they always are breaking stuff even if they try not to. And it just sucks that the entire industry feels those consequences, especially when it's as like front and center as like a growth channel like Meta advertising is.
For sure, right? Because the majority of us probably on this call or that partner with Everflow or work with Everflow, I'd imagine 90% or the majority run traffic on Meta, right? And so it always sort of creates this like poor taste in your mouth sometimes, where you're like, man, we're the ones that feed the beast, right? And then it's just like having the hand, cut off that feeds you, sort of thing. And I was thinking about this morning as I was kind of just pondering on things to share. Like, Meta advertisers are like probably some of the most resilient people like on the planet. If you think about it, right? It's like we get punched in the mouth so often with our business models being threatened from like an advertising perspective, whether you're a brand or an agency. There's always some massive challenge to sort of navigate. So yeah, this is a really timely one right now.
Yeah. And a constant battle for affiliates too, is that you always be at the forefront of what works, and then either it gets broken or everyone catches up, or just it gets disrupted in some way. So it's like part of the reason why affiliate managers have to have a lot of grace to their affiliates, is that like so much of everything we do is there's stuff out of everyone's control because of outside like forces, and a lot of times those are not intentional on their side either.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of like unintended consequences that come with this space. Again, if you're a brand or an affiliate running media, it's tough. It can be tough. We're all chasing the same thing, which is results and performance. And these sort of like, let's even flip it more on the regulatory side, which is something that we'll talk about today too, obviously with telehealth, is like all of a sudden Eli Lilly throws out a mandate. And now, if you're a brand, now all of a sudden you maybe can't supply product. And that creates challenges from that side of things too. There's a lot of like regulatory challenges that are just kind of happening in the digital marketing, D2C, telehealth, space in general. Meta compliance is one, just general like medical compliance, being sort of another. But we're also going to get into messaging strategy, how you can remain compliant with your messaging and your ad copy and things like that too. So no matter if you are launching soon or if you're already running and you're scaling, maintaining like messaging compliance is the biggest, from a marketing perspective, one of the biggest sort of both needle movers and sort of like threats, ongoingly. And it's something to just continue to monitor and not take your eyes off of.
For sure. And I think that's a great place to start, is just sort of like, how are you thinking about like continuing to run on Meta? Like, what are you trying to do to sort of like keep in front of all these changes and sort of like make sure that you're as compliant as possible.
Yeah, I mean, to be completely honest, and this isn't just hearsay, like we've been in great shape for a long time. We made a little bit of a misstep here recently using a third-party LLM where we were actually transparently, we were compiling Everflow reports. That's not an Everflow problem, just to be clear. We were trying to bridge the gap between our upper funnel events, meaning like a quiz start, a cost per quiz start, a form completion percentage, et cetera, to get that data before, so that we can basically optimize campaigns, right? And that data is only really available through Everflow. And so we started using Victor for example, in this case, so that we could bridge the visibility gap of the data between the actual ad account, Meta in this case, and then our attribution tracking, Everflow in this case, which has been fantastic for campaign optimization, because when you optimize your results, meaning your cost per conversion, CPA, whatever you want to call it, with early kill points based on cost per quiz start, you can more effectively test your ad spend. I'm as willing to go as technical as you guys want to pop into the chat today, but I'll try to keep that part high level. And so that's where we sort of started running into issues, is like just that we weren't even optimizing meta campaigns with a third-party LLM. We were only extracting data from a connection point in that perspective. And so otherwise, like, just kind of come full circle back to your question, what are we doing in terms of compliance? Like we personally have been advertising in health and wellness for probably about 8 years. And we know how strict the space can be. And so we've never been willing to sort of toe the line, just really abiding by the do's and don'ts that Meta outlines, which is, even though it's unclear, it's still clear in the sense of, no, what's the word I'm looking for? Like no claims in the sense of like lose 10 pounds in 10 days, if we're talking weight loss and GLP-1, like staying really clear away from bold promises and claims like that is sort of baseline foundation 101. And that obviously is then mimicked over onto the landing page side. We're talking no before and afters. We're talking like no guarantees for results, especially like in the weight loss, side of things. That's a little bit more easy to do. Like if you're talking hair loss, ED, or some of the other spaces where it's not as much of a hot button regulated, type of because we're talking FTC, getting involved in this sort of thing from a advertising, perspective here. So it's just you've got to have do's and don'ts. Let me kind of tighten this whole thing up. You've got to have do's and don'ts of what you can say in your ads, on your landing pages from a brand perspective. And you've got to really understand what the advertising basically standards are and bridge those gaps together. We've worked with brands where they've actually built compliance chatbots, where you literally like basically give the chatbot sort of like the do's and don'ts. And then if, let's say that you're working on a brand new UGC brief, a new landing page, a new creative concept, even new organic content, you can sort of judge that content against the compliance chatbot. And that's a big one as well.
We had a question from the chat, which was basically like, can you go a little bit more into the negative effects from using the LLM to collect data?
I mean, yeah, I'm not sure. Alan might have joined potentially late. So yeah, Alan, what we've seen, and this has happened to us internally, as well as just a bunch of peers, is basically connecting a third-party LLM, like a Gemini, a Victor, and then obviously Victor uses Claude or other LLMs, but like a ChatGPT, is like it's going to flag what appears to be a new ad compliance policy, which is AI and automation. And so that is leading to disabled ad accounts, disabled business pages, disabled profiles. So the negative effects are pretty significant from that side of things. Honestly, potentially taking down your ability to advertise.
So Will, on that sort of like with Victor, what were they having access to that sort of identified as them being involved? Were like they having some sort of like API access into your account? How did like what was the actual connection piece?
Yeah, so Victor in this case specifically allows you to connect to Meta through Victor essentially to basically extract data. We started basically, we have this internal process that we basically just call like kill points. And so kill points are basically just like progressive shut off rules that we mentally know of, but that we wanted to trigger reporting on using our Everflow data to sort of bridge that gap between, the Meta side of things, right? And so, yeah, that integration directly appears to be what got us flagged in some different scenarios. Fortunately, we've got 3 business managers. We pretty much always have 3 to 4 admins on accounts at all times. And that's something I would recommend for you guys is make sure that you have multiple admins on your business managers. So if you're the founder of the brand, have your director of marketing, your COO, your operations manager on there as a backup. And this is just kind of good practice no matter what. There's a variety of different reasons that could affect your access to your business managers at any given time. Why would you want to be aware of that? Well, if you lose your access and you're continuing to spend, your ad accounts, your credit cards, however you're funding ad spend are continuing to get hit. So you want to have that backup of other people having access to ad accounts and the business managers. And depending on how you have this same thing for Google too, by the way. Depending on how you have your admin 2-factor authentication set up in Business Manager, it might require a second approval to make changes in your business managers. Same thing for Google as well. So just some proactive things that you guys can start doing now. Just make sure if anything did ever happen for whatever reason, you don't lose access to those assets.
Yeah, I think those are really good points. And I think it's interesting, that just sort of like with Meta in particular, like just be very careful with having any of the AI solutions sort of having the direct integration.
Yeah.
And from our perspective, like one of the things we've been saying a lot is just in many cases, having AI directly involved with things is not the right way to use it. Like you're much better working with AI to build like a more standardized like API integration, sort of like pulling in data from like whatever, if MCP, even that works if they provide it. But basically build stable code with the AI that you're working with AI to get to that point, but the AI is not involved after that once the code is stable. Because the problem with like anytime you're using like AI and agents and these models is like they change so much and they don't give very consistent results as unless you build a huge amount of guardrails. But they're really good at building like these simple code things. Like they can read an API document immediately. You can basically be like, hey, look at this API document, look at these things. Like I want you to build like a simple like code base that basically extracts all this stuff into a spreadsheet. And then I work on it from the spreadsheet. But I think that so much stuff is actually better done with just like a code written in Google Sheets using their app script functionality to just pull it into a spreadsheet. So you don't have to worry about like, what is the AI agent doing in the back end? Like what else do they build into it? These are the sort of things that keep companies scared when they're letting AI agents have access to their data because they don't know like what is other stuff that company is doing once they have access. These are all the worry thing. Whereas if you just build like a stable code that's like all you're doing is checking these campaigns and pulling these data sets into a thing, like it's much more secure. And like it doesn't mean that you don't risk anything with Meta because they move to the beat of their own drum.
Yeah.
But at least it's like just things you keep in mind is that there's ways to use AI for like coding and automation that doesn't involve the AI agent being involved every time. And a lot of times I just think it's a better solution.
Yeah, and this is like a new layer of compliance, right? Is like literally tech and AI compliance. Some of the conversations that we've had internally, and this is something you kind of touched on it a little bit through one of the clients I work with, is that access to customer data. right? So especially in telehealth, at times we're talking about personal data, personal information. Now we're getting like HIPAA compliance is now sort of on the table. So just really being aware of what data you are giving to any AI tool that you may be using. It's literally the Wild West right now, right? Like it's the Wild West in regards to use cases of meaning using AI, using automations, using AI to build reporting tools, build tech stacks, et cetera. But that data has to be fed from somewhere. And yeah, it's just the Wild West right now. And I think the best thing that I can share as a peer, for you guys too, is just I'd probably approach with caution versus approaching like too aggressively. To each his own, as a whole. But there's bigger tech companies at play here that are involved in all of these scenarios, and they're just fighting over who gets to do what which way, and so they're going to change their compliance standards pretty quickly and rapidly, and that means some of us as business owners and things are going to get kind of caught up in that whole debacle at the same time.
Yeah, I think that makes total sense. And the approach with caution is just it's advisable. But I know that a lot of people get scared about that, where like, how will I be competitive? Like, am I missing out on all the opportunity while it's hot, et cetera? Like, how do you think with your company, sort of like how you frame the compliance side and how you think about sort of like what actions you're taking and why you're taking extra actions to be extra compliant?
Yeah, I mean, at least for us, we always look at things through what's going to be best long term. I'm not typically willing to sort of skip over or skip steps in the short term, and if it's going to compromise the long term. I'd much rather say no to working with a partner that's doing things uncompliantly, where maybe we could make a little extra revenue or it impacts our revenue in the short term, but what does that do to compromise in the long term? We actually cut ties with a pretty large brand in the last couple of weeks that was also doing some things on their side, where it was just like, this compromises us for the long term. And so when I look at compliance, I look at compliance the same way, which is like, yes, he who spends the most to acquire a customer wins, but also he who does things the right way will be around the longest. And so that stuff catches up to you one way or another, whether it's black hat tactics, whether it's saying that you have real doctors in your ad campaigns or on your as part of your brand or in your assets when you don't. That's kind of one of the big ones. I mean, we've seen that in this space right now where brands have they're maybe misleading, and that's why these compliance standards are there. It's because somebody like a Meta or Google doesn't want brands misleading consumers, right? So I think that's important to bring up, is like, it's our duty really to not mislead people. So I'm not really big on misleading people. I tend to like to do things from a more authentic, real and reasonable way. Other people are gonna do things the inauthentic and unreasonable way. But I think it's just good practice to do things the right way as well.
I mean, that's also why you're still in the industry.
Yeah.
There's been countless affiliates in the past who have made a
Yeah,
lot of money that you just stop coming one day when everything
for sure.
catches up to them.
Yeah, and that's happened, right? Like the reason a lot of guys got out of it, if we're just talking the affiliate side, a big reason a lot of guys had to get out of the industry is there was a lot of FTC lawsuits within the last 5 or 10 years, right? Especially in the biz op space, right? Financial claims, things like that, like make $1 million in 90 days. Like that's no different than saying lose 10 pounds in 10 days, right? It's a claim that can't be substantiated. It's like a false promise and a misleading guarantee for results. And that's like sort of the foundational infrastructure for compliance, is just not not developing misleading sort of ad campaigns.
Yeah. And consumers need protection in these situations where there's bad actors. So We had another question, a little bit different, but pretty interesting from Justin. And he said, like, how much do first-time discount offers affect the quality of retention? And sort of what kind of retention rates do you see for affiliates versus branded paid media spend? So let's start with the first one, which is sort of like, have you been seeing anything which is sort of like discounts up front for offers and how that sort of affects retention? Do you have any sort of insights from your side on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to vary brand by brand and offer by offer, to be completely honest. I would say generally, the consensus is when you chase cheap customers, it leads to lower lifetime value, right? And so there's definitely, whether it's telehealth or any other industry, there's definitely brands who are willing to play sort of the price war. And I think we all know when you obtain quality, you get quality. And when you obtain low quality, you get low quality. And so that's going to vary sort of obviously offer by offer of what the exact retention rate is for weight loss versus TRT and telehealth, for example. But yeah, generally speaking, it's always better to, if LTV is the name of the game, that's what brands want. They want good customers that stay, right? If you're a brand owner on the call, you want great customers that stay. This is why I've never been it's kind of a disruptive viewpoint. I've never been an advocate for chasing low CPA, because when you chase low cost leads, you get low cost leads, right? You get cheap leads. That doesn't necessarily mean good leads, right? Everybody wants low cost good leads, right? But like, he who spends the most to acquire a customer wins. And when you understand that golden rule, you just have to optimize the back end economics of the business model in order to support paying for good customers. So that would kind of be my take on that. And I haven't really changed that viewpoint in the last 10 years, having worked with and consulted hundreds of brands at this point. I've never really seen cheap leads turn into great customers and high LTV. Even if you were to, let's take a non-ecom or telehealth type example. Let's say that you're more in the info space, or maybe you've run, or you've had sort of low ticket front end info offers. Typically, those low ticket info offers are a quality filter that filters the unqualified people out so that you can ascend the qualified people up in and through the funnel, right? Still, the majority are mostly unqualified because they're not action takers, if you look at it through like a coaching offer type perspective, if you will. But in ecom, we don't necessarily have that luxury, right? Like, or in telehealth, it's literally acquire customer, get customer to use product, right? And then retain. The biggest challenge in telehealth right now is getting customers to stay or stick after they have the actual virtual consult with the practitioner, the doctor, the virtual care physician, whatever that is. And that is what tends to vary. So touching on the second part of the question, that's what tends to vary between traffic channels. For example, we know of one scenario in, let's say, TRT, where the what do you call it? Just trying to like think of the best term to not confuse you guys. The stickiness rate of somebody. Let me back up one sec. If you're acquiring a customer for a GLP-1, an ED, a TRT, whatever it is, there's like an initial purchase, but the real purchase happens when the customer is retained post virtual care visit, right? That's what the brands really care about. And so that's more of an ascension process of how many customers actually stick after becoming a lead or actually buy after becoming a lead. Paid search, for example, in most cases, is going to beat paid social. On the other hand, paid social is going to have a lot more scale than paid search, right? So a lot of that comes down to the blended cost per acquisition economics that the brand is willing to sustain, and truthfully, what the cash flow position is of that business to fund that acquisition strategy. right? There are just simply big brands in this space that are well capitalized, that are willing to fund the acquisition mechanism that others are not willing to fund. And that's not really any that different from any other industry, right? So hopefully that touches on that sort of thing. Generally speaking, the branded traffic is going to have better retention than affiliate, but it's still kind of a broad stroke statement. You still need alternative traffic sources in order to scale and grow. And so it's kind of one of those things, again, you kind of take it with the growth as how affiliate also grows the brand, because you're driving unattributed sales through an affiliate strategy that leads to people going to your website, going to your Amazon, converting on your Google campaigns, converting on your remarketing campaigns, opting into your email funnels. And so generally, affiliate's not going to be the most profitable channel. It is, however, a significant growth mechanism to go from 10 million to 25 million or 50 million. And that's why so many brands enact that strategy, is because it's a significant scaling lever. And then it comes down to optimizing the financials and the unit economics on the back end. Hopefully that makes sense. I know some of that is like very technical, but also like very philosophical and high level as well.
Yeah, I think there's a couple pieces to that as well, which is like, one, it's really important that you track all the stuff and you look at everything in terms of lifetime value, and you're looking at it on a like placement level. So making sure you get the placement IDs for both like your affiliates, but also all of your media buying, because honestly, like there's lots of like garbage traffic you can get from some affiliates, but at the same time, like there's lots of garbage traffic you can get from like Google SEM, etc.
Sure.
Because if you think about like even your paid ad channels, like they tend to optimize towards like what drives the initial conversion, which again is often like the low quality visitor. So it's really important that you understand for every one of your channels sort of like who's actually delivering the like most lifetime value, and you're turning off the lower quality sources for your own media buying. But on the other hand, like when you really know the lifetime value of your affiliates and who's delivering a ton of value there, you can increase your payouts to those affiliates that have really high lifetime value. You can guide them to be like, hey, can you scale up these placements and turn down these placements? Because a lot of times when you're tracking lifetime value, you don't always want to share all of that with the affiliates so that they know the true revenue they're driving, because they might want to ask for way too much that you can't get approved internally. But you should at least know on your side, and you should make sure that you are rewarding your best affiliates with much higher payouts even before they ask. Because again, like with any of this stuff, if you could pay an affiliate twice as much for a customer because you know the quality is good, that affiliate is going to figure out ways to scale your campaign. So it's like it's to you to sort of get that. And it's like a kind of lead up to that, like Joe asked a question I think fits well into this.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Which is just basically like, does this mean that affiliates should be looking to work on an LTV model rather than being paid on the CPA? Or should the CPA bake that in?
Yeah, I think, and you kind of touched on this a little bit, like most brands are probably not going to share LTV data with their affiliate partners, but it is a mutual win from a negotiating perspective to bake that LTV into higher payouts. That's often why we've been able to get higher payouts, is because we drive volume, but also we drive good quality volume. And so affiliate managers, CMOs, founders, whatever, whoever else is, on this call or will listen to the recording, they know who their best affiliate partners are because they're looking at that LTV data. And so same thing and advice on the brand side, optimize, like you said, Michael, towards your best affiliates, reward them because they're really getting you what you want. And that's where the win-win is, right? Like, I think if we look at this through a lens of like, what are affiliate programs that often fail? Low CPA payouts reward low quality traffic, right? And so if you've ever launched an affiliate program and you felt like all you've gotten is bad leads or bad customers, it's because that's what it's rewarding, right? And so if you want great leads and great customers, like anything else in life, we have to pay for that, right? And so typically payout economics and payout dynamics are really a leading indicator to whether an affiliate program can scale. Like I shared before, cheap leads equals cheap customers. And so a simple little paradigm shift here is if you had 100 bad leads, if you had 100 leads and 10% of them were good, that means that those 10 qualified leads actually cost $10. Yes, maybe 100 leads cost $1, but you also paid for 90 bad leads, right? Versus if I say, hey, if I can give you 10 leads, 10 qualified leads and they're $10, which one would you rather have? To not have to sort through the 90 unqualified ones, right? And so it's just a little simple paradigm shift of, quality is always going to be better for the business. So if you're on the affiliate side, baking in the LTV into your negotiation. And then if you're on the brand side, optimize towards your best affiliates who are driving the best LTV for you, because that's ultimately what is better for the business in the long run.
Yeah, I think that's spot on, but I think there's another key piece, which is just always keep in mind with affiliates that even the non-media buyers are still spending a ton of time and effort to launch a new campaign. So they're putting a lot of upfront risk on it. And then a media buyer is putting in their money upfront on it. So they can't afford to be paid 3 months, 6 months down the line because they've already spent all the money at the beginning. So it's really important that you build a system that at least has enough immediate reward that they can see success. And then there's multiple ways you can you can pay them on all future subscriptions. You can do things like that. But it's very important that at least the first thing that they get paid on is enough that it's justifying their efforts, and then everything else can scale on it. So you don't have to do only on the pure upfront CPA, but it's important that that is at least enough that they are seeing results there, and then they have the levers to scale their campaigns. And I think the other piece of that is just how often you pay your affiliates matters a lot, because if you pay your affiliates net 90, you're not going to have a lot of media buyer affiliates. They've all gone broke, shut down their business, left the country before that first paycheck arrives.
That's why I've never really been that big of a fan of a rev share model, is because, go find an affiliate program on OfferStack or, something like that. The majority of them are rev shares, but a rev share model leads to one-off conversions. It can't drive conversions in volume unless somebody owns a list and they're just kind of tapping into an asset or a resource that they've already built, right? So from a paid traffic perspective, an LTV model or a delayed payout model that's on a 3, 6 month or 9 month, unless you guys have multi-million-dollar bankrolls that you're willing to fund that with, which I would imagine the majority don't from the affiliate side, that LTV or delayed payout model is really going to threaten the ability to scale. So let's take this next one from Jan. 2 questions.
There was one earlier, if we could do that one first, which was
sure.
What are your thoughts on FreshPaint and other tools for attribution compliance?
Yeah, I have to be honest, I'm not familiar with FreshPaint. Would love to hear more about that. So Alan, if you've got some insights there that you could share with the group and pop that into the chat, that'd be super helpful for sure.
Yeah, I likewise have heard of it once, but I know nothing about it. So
yeah, I'm gonna be doing a Google search after this one. So yeah, I'm just gonna pop this up on my side.
All right, so now we get to Jan's question. So he had 2 questions for Will. One of them was, do you specialize in a specific niche, or do you as an affiliate work across multiple niches?
Yeah, so at this point for us, we primarily specialize in telehealth. And I think it's always best to niche down from the affiliate perspective, because you can leverage learnings across brands or across different products or offers. You'll know what works from a messaging perspective, from a creative perspective, whether you're running TikTok, Meta, Google, etc. It's no different than having a hyper specialization in any other industry. So yeah, we have been basically running telehealth traffic almost exclusively for the last 4.5 years.
Cool. And within that niche, because it's still a pretty wide niche, Is there any places where you're seeing like right now it's like pretty low competition, but there's high potential, it could be a big opportunity coming out?
Like within telehealth specifically?
And just like all health and beauty and Nutra and all that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously GLP-1 is like hyper competitive, like high competition, still high potential. I think some of these new emerging categories in telehealth specifically definitely have high potential, lower competition. Spaces like ED or NAD or HRT. HRT is kind of just starting to emerge on the scene. There may be some brands who've already cracked it or some affiliates who've cracked it, but it's nowhere close to what GLP-1 is in telehealth right now. We've just kind of started dabbling in that side of things. So I think these alternative product categories within telehealth are where the lower competition, higher potential is, as people are becoming more comfortable basically being prescribed and working through virtual care approval processes. Obviously, I just think that it's a massive space and a massive category. And I don't remember the exact stat on this, and I could completely butcher this. But it blew me away when I found out about it. Actually, I'm not even going to make up the stat, but it was something like a significant amount or a majority of people have now switched to virtual care over like in-person care in terms of like from a doctor side of things. And definitely do some more research on that. I wish I had the exact stat, but when I saw that, I was like, holy smokes. And I think something like 1 in 4 people in the US are on a GLP-1 right now. So in terms of like categorization adoption, there is massive adoption that is happening right now, just from like a telehealth like provider perspective as a whole. That's why I'm so bullish on it and why we focus so much in the space.
There's so much opportunity there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of questions. Thank you everyone for all the questions. I wanted to choose Vivek's question just because I want to talk a little bit about like landing pages and compliance. But his specific question was sort of like, how much time, effort do you invest in a custom intake form, like embeddables, etc.? And I just taking it to the broader thing of how do you think about like landing pages, compliance, and all the best practices there?
Yeah, I mean it's no different than ad compliance, messaging compliance, product compliance. Like you could have compliant ads and an uncompliant funnel, and then that causes a lot of issues, right? Within telehealth specifically, the intake form is everything. The intake form is where leads go to die, right? So if you have massive drop off in your intake form, that's going to drastically affect the cost per lead or cost, CPA. And so, I've always looked at conversion rate optimization from the point of the conversion backwards, because if you can basically fix the exposures or the holes in the bucket that are closest to the point of purchase first, that's where sales are going to die. And in this case, that's really the intake form. Prior to, in e-com, traditional e-com, it was like the cart, right? Everyone used to talk about optimizing the cart. This is basically the cart from a D2C telehealth perspective. So I would not take it lightly, and I would try to nail it. Like I would put significant time and effort into it. I wouldn't just throw something up and, expect that to work.
For sure.
I mean, there's brands that have questionnaires that are pushing 30, 40 questions plus in their intake forms for a reason.
Yeah, and with that stuff too, I recommend you think through like which ones really matter, because it's very easy to do form scope creep, where you just keep adding too many questions to the form, and like every question you ask, like there's a little bit more chance someone abandons and doesn't do it. So you want to ask questions where you're like, we want this question because we are going to be doing X. We want this question because it's going to let us understand better why. Like it's worth it to lose a little bit of conversion rate to understand better, like this is the ideal customer. We can support them this way. We can give them custom messaging, referencing the specific thing they said. Like those are the things that may lower the like initial conversion rate, but massively increase the conversion rate to becoming like a long-term customer in the LTV. Sure. So you're always doing that balancing act of like, okay, do I really need this or can I subtract? And I think with all business things, like it's very important that you're always thinking about how do I subtract from what I'm doing to remove all of the stuff that like was just like unexamined assumptions I had made. Can I remove those? Do I really need to keep asking this stuff? Because it's like you want to ask everything you truly need, and you don't want to be afraid to ask more of a potential prospect. But then you also want to make sure, like, do I really need this? Let's remove it.
Well, and the big thing with the intake forms and telehealth in particular is their qualification mechanisms, right? And so the brands are using that intake information to make a initial sort of recommendation, to the potential customer, if you will. And so that's important. That layers into the compliance as well, right? So definitely an advocate also of less is more, but also think of it as it's good disqualification too, like with the questions that you're asking. And so I'd rather take a front end conversion rate hit, to your point, if that increases the form completion rate, if we're getting into the technical, which ultimately leads to a better customer.
For sure. Yep. And to go next question from Alan, what are your thoughts on affiliates doing CPA versus flat fees?
Are top affiliate partners willing to take the risk for CPA? I mean, yes. I mean, we do CPA structures with brands. I think that the landscape is evolving a lot though too. Like especially in telehealth, there is a lot of financial risk in acquiring a customer. In many cases, we're talking $300 and $400 CPAs, right? You've got to be great at media buying in order to fund that for the long term. The second part of that is the creative demand, the content production demand that is needed to literally drive leads and conversions in telehealth specifically, because they're high spending campaigns, they're high burn from a content fatigue perspective. We've started layering in more retainers into our deal structures as well, because like if you want to spend 500 grand a month, I mean, you've got to produce 50, 60 creatives a month. If every UGC minimally just cost $200, you're spending 10 grand a month just on UGC, hoping that's a $10,000 like loss right up on the top, let alone whether or not you're actually scaling the campaign and the offer, So, and obviously UGC is going to be one of the top creative types. So I think I've seen a lot in the space of affiliates getting more creative with brands, with deal structures and not just CPA only, because of everything that is involved in scaling and optimizing a campaign these days from an affiliate perspective. So.
Yeah, I totally agree with this. I also think that getting flat fee budgets approved for your affiliate program, that's just like the future anyway. Like it's very important because outside of the media buyer side, if you think about like more like content publishers, any sort of UGC type style affiliates, etc., like we're in this weird flex point where they don't know, like traffic is weird. They may not have that consistently going. They have to spend time to create that content. That takes paying a writer, that takes effort if they want to make something that's actually good versus just slop. Yeah. So a lot of your like AEO strategy should be like working with publishers where you're talking with them, you're getting them to write articles about the like consensus topics that you want ChatGPT and Gemini to be surfacing. And the best way to do that is like, here's a flat fee that immediately justifies this for you, and a back-end CPA for you to continue to maintain it, make it better, build out new content, and sort of like prove the performance so that you can create more content for me without me flat feeing again, because now you have a proven like CPA on it. Like, I think so much of stuff is now so nebulous about like, will the affiliate make any money, that flat fee goes a long way towards like really getting the conversation started with affiliates. And once they're proven, CPA is a good way to keep going.
Yeah, sustainability. That leads to sustainability. And because the only way that affiliate is going to grow is with long-term sustainability, right? A lot of programs will, basically to this call, scale or die, based on how well you can retain affiliate partners if you're on the brand side. And if you're on the affiliate side, your ability to produce is going to be directly tied to the sustainability on the affiliate side too. And the more risk that the affiliate has, the less likely they are to stick and stay with a brand, right? And I know one of the biggest pain points from the brand side is affiliates hopping around from brand to brand or company to company. And it's like, well, that's because they're incentivized to chase the best payout, right? If we're rewarding like sustainability and growth and the relationship and building and long-term success and all that, and taking that all into consideration for the long run, we're looking at these partnerships as 1, 2, 3 year, as a 1, 2, 3 year type of lens, which can drive tens of millions of growth for a brand, let alone the impacted LTV, right? So it's like set up those structures so that they're a win-win. So that's just my viewpoint on it.
Yeah, totally agree. And we had a question from Neat Yashish about sort of, he had a pretty successful meta campaign and then it ended up getting shut down. And they've been having a lot of challenge getting back to that sort of scale. So
yeah,
any advice on sort of like how to get a meta campaign running again after you get randomly deactivated based on some sort of change in the system?
Yeah, there could be a lot to this, right? Depending on what the brand was, like maybe the brand was doing some things uncompliantly and they had to make changes to the offer. And that could also be why the offer is not reestablishing performance the way that it was before. So there can be brand factors that impact this performance as well. But I think it all goes back to the messaging strategy. Starting with the creative research, who are we targeting? What problem are we solving? And then how are we going to attack that from a messaging perspective? That's the core of any winning, successful ad campaign. And I always like to research organic content that has gone viral to identify like what messaging angles are people gravitating towards. Because a video that has 300,000 views on Instagram or TikTok went viral for a reason, because the algorithm understands that people are engaging with that content, right? And so our job as now paid media, marketers, is to try to dissect, okay, why did this organic content go viral? How can I leverage that information to bring that into my ad campaign? So I would be going back, let's eliminate the brand side as a potential constraint or issue in this scenario. Let's say that the brand didn't make any changes. Let's say that the offer and the funnel and all that is the same, which is extremely highly unlikely, right? Maybe you did some stuff on your end, or, as affiliates, maybe you guys have done some stuff on your end. I'd go back to the core of the messaging research and really identify how are we helping these people, and then how do I develop my creative in a way where it is very native to the platform, because people and Meta rewards, all the platforms reward people staying on the ad platform. And the less that your ad looks and sounds like an ad, the better your CPMs will be, the better the engagement on the content will be, which then leads to sustainable ad creative that lasts for a longer period of time. And that's what dictates scale. But then outside of that, it's really building a content machine that allows you to produce volume of content week over week so that you can deal with the fluctuations of performance, continue testing literally every day in order to get that performance back. There are very little scenarios now where offers are scaling behind one hero ad like they used to. It takes volume of content these days in order to sustain performance, and that's what Andromeda rewards from a Meta perspective. They reward messaging and creative diversification. And didn't we break that down a little bit last call? I think we got into creative diversification a little bit. Mm-hmm. So if you're curious on a little bit more of that creative diversification, I'd check out the Scale or Die from June.
Yeah, we talked a lot about AI and sort of like Will's like process for creating all these assets, how they do it at scale, how much real work it takes, because it takes so much work to create fresh creatives, etc. And a little bit on that though, like in this very moment for telehealth stuff, like is there any formats that you're particularly like, oh, this is like our like the recommended like starting place there?
Yeah, I mean, product review or demo style UGC is probably number one. Meaning like if you've scrolled on Instagram and you've seen these like transformation style videos, a before and after style transformation using indirect messaging. So pulling this compliance layer back in, you never want to sort of go, was 200 pounds, now 150 pounds. It might be something more like, size 16 to size 6, right? So the way that I've always coached ad copy compliance is how do you say it without saying it? And that's sort of what we sort of allude to as indirect messaging versus direct messaging. So UGC is pretty much still number one. There's lots of different ways that you can frame up UGC, product review, testimonial, unboxing, not really going to work that well in telehealth, but like green screen, sort of demo style review type UGC. I took row for 30 days. Here's what happened. That style of UGC, right? An advertorial style, if you will. And then still tons of static images, comparison, static images, feature benefit, offer driven static images, things like that. How does the ad creation? Oh, I think what I wanted to kind of tie into all of this is that I think is really important for you guys to know if we're talking on the paid traffic side. And we did allude to this a little bit last call. Motion released their 2026 creative benchmarks report, maybe like 2 months ago at this point. All that to say, I think the report covers about 500 million in ad spend. The average advertiser across all of that 500 million has an 8% win rate on their tests. And I think that's really important for you guys to know that 92% of the creative that you make and the test that you run will fail. And so if you really embrace that, it kind of alludes to why the volume of creation is so important, because in order to get scale, you have to produce 100 creatives to find the 8 winners. Essentially, that will allow you to scale to 10K a day, 20K a day, whatever that is, right? And then just multiply that out. So the ad creation process has to reward quality and quantity so that you can test in volume. You guys should be looking to run, if you're under a couple $1,000s a day in spend, I'm talking less than $3,000 a day in spend, you should be testing at least 8 to 10 new creatives per week. Once you start really scaling, we're talking 2 dozen. Like when I say really scaling, I'm talking about spending 30, 40, 50 grand a day. You're going to be pumping out 50 creatives in a month, like no problem. Well, you're going to need to, let's put it that way. Or the sustainability of scale is just not going to stick. You're going to be one ad away from having to pull back all of your ad spend, which means sales die. So.
And that's why it's good to have super affiliates, because some of us do not want to do that.
Yeah. And that's why we label this strategy session Scale or Die, because there's a pretty thin line between, like what it takes. And that's why we just kind of share from an open playbook perspective to help you guys. Again, whether you're on the marketing partner side or whether you're on the brand side, it's just really all about teeing you guys up for success so that you can go crush it. That helps you guys, that helps us, that helps Everflow. Everybody's winning in that scenario. So I know compliance can be a little bit of a dry topic, but compliance is really going to be the determining factor of whether the brand or the advertiser sticks around, unfortunately.
For sure. And Will, if people want to reach out to you directly, how can they find you?
Absolutely. Just like you, pretty active on LinkedIn. So give me a shout on LinkedIn if you want to chat further. If you want support, if you want help, I'm happy to see how we can do that. Also, next Scale or Die is going to be in middle of September. So be on the lookout for that. We'll obviously share that with you guys on LinkedIn and on the email follow-up as well. We'll have the recording for you guys too. So if there's something that you wanted to circle back on, you'll get the show notes and the recording as well.
Yep, for sure.
Any final famous last words?
You're saying, sorry.
Any final or famous last words for you today?
No, let's stay compliant.
I figured you were going to say something like that. For sure. Good jamming with you guys today. Appreciate the questions. We'll catch you soon.
Bye-bye.